About 400 years before Jesus, there was a Greek philosopher and scientist by the name of Aristotle. And today, Aristotle is well known for many things, including one of my favorite quotes, where he said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." And that's such a great quote. It's actually so good. I wish it was a Doug Fields quote. And when I'm teaching students, I tell them that I've always said excellence is not an act, but a habit. No, just kidding. But it's actually a really good quote when talking about spiritual disciplines and helping teenagers develop spiritual habits. But that's for another training. In this specific training, I want to highlight Aristotle's 3 key questions that he identified as essential if you're going to be an effective communicator. And I want to look at those 3 questions and move from being a speaker or communicator on stage to being off stage and face-to-face in front of a teenager. Because as youth workers, we don't disciple teenagers from the stage, we disciple them up close. And that's what you have said yes to getting close to teenagers as a mentor or a small group leader or a discipler. And these 3 questions will help you become more effective in what you do with teenagers. The 3 Aristotle questions revolved around these 3 words: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos, this is where we get the word ethical, and it initiates the primary question: are you ethical, or specifically, are you trustworthy? The second word, pathos, where we get the word empathy. And the question here is, do you care about me? And finally, the third word, logos, is where we derive the word logic from. And the question connected to this is, do you know what you're talking about? Are you logical? And as a speaker or a teacher, these are really important questions. Actually, they're brilliant questions. And we need to consider them when preparing a message for a group because your audience is asking those questions of a communicator. But I want to explore how these questions can help you care for and counsel teenagers on more of a one-to-one basis. And I want you to imagine that a teenager is asking these 3 questions of you as their mentor or their small group leader. They're asking, can I trust you? That's a fair question about trust. They're saying, are you an ethical person? Are you honest? Are you worthy of their faith in you? Because students are looking for safe people. People who will care about their personal highs and lows, people that they can confide in about some of the questions and pain in their life. But before students will open their heart to you, they need to know that you're going to protect it and that you're going to be trustworthy. I've actually seen in action as simple as safe gossip, which sounds like an oxymoron, but safe gossip, I've seen it damage a leader's ethos. Safe gossip is when you talk to another adult leader about a teenager you're working with, and that's really not safe. See, for example, if you have a teenager going through some difficult issues that you don't feel equipped to answer, please don't be afraid to ask for help, but be very careful to avoid making it gossip. See, you can seek wisdom and advice for a situation without giving away the student's personal information. See, you don't have to say something like, hey, Jerome has a question about gender identity. Well, one, that's gossip. It's violating Jerome's trust. It's just as easy to say, hey, there's a student that I've been talking to recently who's got some big questions that I'm struggling to answer. And one of these questions revolves around gender identity, and I'm at a total loss for what my next steps should be. See, that's a better approach because it protects Jerome's anonymity and it protects your integrity at the same time. And it's essential that you be wise about whom you share information with and when you share that information. Also, under this big idea of being trustworthy, I would encourage you to not bite on a teenager's request when he or she says something like this. Hey, I want to tell you something, but I need you to promise me you're not going to tell anyone. Now, you may already know this, but please don't make that promise. See, as a caring adult, you can't legally make that promise. And what you want to do is you want to communicate to the students that they can share anything with you, but you can never promise in advance that you won't repeat what you hear, because a premature promise to keep something private can cause you to choose between losing a student's trust and getting the student the help they need. There are times when you can't afford to keep a secret. When someone's life is in danger, when someone is being abused, when harm is nearby, you can't keep the promise not to tell anyone. Here's how I would respond. I'd say, Jerome, I'm so sorry, but I can't make you that promise not to tell anyone. I can't because I care about you too much. I can make you the promise that I'm going to love you through whatever it is that you're going through, but I can't legally make the promise to keep anything a secret. I will make you a promise to help you in what you share with me. See, this is a little bit of an aside, but you may want to have a plan in place with your youth leaders. If a teenager ever confides in you about abuse or extreme crisis situation or suicide or harm to other students or harm to a family member, be sure to get familiar with your county's emergency child protection procedures so you know what your legal responsibilities are going to be. Then when situations like that arise, you're going to know the right procedures and you're going to be able to properly inform students and families. And in the midst of all of this, you're going to maintain your trust as well as the trust with other students who are eventually going to hear about it. So this is a really big question, and why I'm spending most of the time on this one is, can I trust you? Big question. The second question is this: do you care about me? Pathos, empathy. Do you care? Teenagers are looking to confide in people who know them and will actually care for them. They live in a fast-paced world with many absent adult connections, and your teenagers need to know that you're going to take time to love them individually and pay attention to their needs and listen to them and then respond in a genuine and compassionate way. There's a popular phrase that I think all youth leaders should memorize, and it's this: teenagers don't care what you know, that's logos, until they know that you care. That's pathos. Okay? That quote wasn't from Aristotle, but it sure is good, an important one. So, feel free to attribute that quote to me. But there are lots of ways to communicate care. Being consistent, showing up every week, asking personal questions, listening to their answers, following up on conversations, praying for them, encouraging them, you actually signing up for another year as a leader in youth ministry, pointing them to Jesus. I mean, there's so many ways that you can show that you care. And caring for another human who happens to be a teenager is complex. But it's made easier by these types of caring actions. And they all communicate the message loud and clear to a teenager that says, I care about you. The third and final question is, do you know what you're talking about? And because of the nature of being a mentor or a small group leader, it's important that you know and understand some of the different issues facing teenagers. Now, at Download Youth Ministry, we've got several short, helpful training videos that can help you in this area. But the point I want to make here is that you want to understand logos, learn. You want to understand and learn some of what your students are dealing with. Okay, that's the logic part of this. Do you know what you're talking about as a small group leader? You will know what you're talking about when you understand the pressures that they're facing or the temptations they're experiencing or the cultural trends that they're involved with. There's a lot revolving around a teenager's life. So do your research, read articles, gather insight from other youth leaders, scan books that deal with the lives of today's teenagers. But I hope you'll spend some time with all three of these questions for your own personal ministry to teenagers, and that you'll spend some time really thoughtfully considering ways that you can loving and safely care for them. Remember what me and Aristotle have always said, that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And I hope you'll continue to make learning a habit in what you're doing so that you'll continue in the path of being an excellent youth worker.